they will be helping me on this learning experience. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you how we're going to make some landscapes inside of Unreal Engine, and then we're going to put some interesting things on them. Now, for this to work, I need some assets. Okay, so what I've done is I've loaded up Quixel Bridge. Remember, Quixel's Megascans assets are free if you use Unreal Engine. And I want to go to 3D plants, and I just want some grass, said everyone. And here it is here, thatching grass. That'll probably do. Now, I've already got this. You can see I've got a tick in the left corner, so I don't need to download it. So I'm just going to should be able to just export it. Oh, I've got to re-download it, never mind. So I'll re-download it. Let's see how long this takes. Now, I'm on a 36 meg connection, which should be fast enough to bring this down, to be honest. Adjust my microphone. There we go. Lovely. There, that's done. So now, once that's done, I should be able to select it and just hit export. Exporting to Unreal Engine, so it's taking it to the project that I've got open. Fab. Okay, nearly done. Lots and lots of things for it to do here. Once this is done, I'm going to find a couple of simple rocks, I think, or stones, or whatever you call them. I'll go to 3D assets, and for this I want, well, let's look at nature. Nature. There we are. And we'll have some rocks. Now, usually they have some packs of different stones, so let's see if they've got any assorted rocks in here, just while this is sending all my files slowly over to Unreal Engine. Now, we've got these small rocks here. The thing is, normally they have like a collection. Small rock pack. There we are, so I'll click download. There we go, and that is downloading. The other thing's finished doing all of its exporting goodness now. Hello viewers, by the way, I hope you're well. I hope you're well. This, by the way, that you're seeing here, okay, this is how I usually work in Unreal Engine. So I've got, you know, 8 monitors, but I'm using 4 of them usually. The 4th monitor you can't see because it's kind of hidden by me. However, it is there. Okay, my rocks are downloaded, so I'm going to hit export. When I'm actually just teaching standard 1080p, which I'll do in a few moments, I'll switch to live scene, and then you'll see it much more like it usually is. Right, that should be it. Okay, so here I am over here, and you can see I've got all my rocks and everything. So I'm going to click Save All, and here's all my new assets. Really important to make sure that I've saved everything. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I am going to change this now to this screen. Hello. Okay, so now you can see what I'm doing a little bit easier. So I've just zoomed in now on this one. Now, let's make things a little bit easier. I'm just going to move my slightly oppressively large microphone out of the way. Okay, so what I do love this microphone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new level. So File, New Level, and I'm just going to make this one here default. Okay, so I'm using third person and I'm in default, and I want to get rid of this. Okay, this is only here because we need something to stand on, and we're going to be making a terrain using landscape. Okay, so I'm not going to make anything particularly overly detailed using my landscape. Let's go to modes and landscape. Now I want to reduce the section size, so I'm going to make it maybe 15 by 15. Okay, you'll notice that that makes it much smaller. I'll keep my section size and quads and everything the same, and just click create, not fill world. Right, with that done, now all I'm going to do is I'm just basically going to draw a very simple kind of set of hills and things. Okay, so hill, 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 hill. Okay, and I'll reduce the size of my brush, and that way I can just layer over and just do some of these. Okay, I just want to get some kind of interesting things. And I do want a kind of a shoreline of eventually as well if I can. So I'm not making anything particularly complicated. I'm just really messing around with form and shape, and I can use my smooth here to kind of flatten out parts that are too lumpy and all that kind of thing. There, quite a simple shape. When I'm done, pardon me, when I'm done I'm going to go to mode select, okay, and I'm just back into normal Unreal Engine. Now I want to get my player start here because we need to have a look at the scale of this, because this is huge, okay. Even though we've reduced the size of our landscape, this is still enormous. Oh, fantastic. Hey Agnes, how are you? Hope you're doing well, man. Sorry about that, I only just saw the message. I have to reach over to monitor 5 in order to see messages. Hey, it's great to have you here. How you doing? Right, so what I'm doing is I'm just increasing the distance from the actual landscape here. So there's a space underneath, and then we get rid of the bad size. And now if I click play, you'll get an idea of the size and scale, even of a small landscape. Okay, they're massive. Look at them, bloody hell. Now, it's not about the landscapes today, okay? Making landscapes is fairly easy for everyone. Even newbies are kind of okay on making landscapes. What I want to talk about is actually texturing a landscape, which is where things become a little bit more difficult. Now, we've seen this ourselves tons and tons and tons of times, okay? You'll get like a new video game developer or a new AEC developer, and they'll make themselves a landscape, and then to make it look nice, they'll go to the landscape material slots here, hello puppy, and they'll go to their content folder and they'll go, oh, start a content materials, there's some grass in here somewhere, I'll use that. Hooray, my landscape looks fantastic. Okay, now we can see that this kind of material is not designed for this kind of use. Alright, this is just a regular kind of ground grass material. Okay, it doesn't do anything particular, it hasn't got any special mapping for the landscape or anything like that, and all it's doing is just uniformly applying this grass all over it. Now if you feel that you can get away with this, groovy, but it ain't really that pretty. Also, another thing to bear in mind is we've got all these funny old lines over here just crisscrossing everything. Hang on a second. Oh, I know what that is. Hang fire a minute, let me just, there we go. Now you can hear me on the right hand side. I had it switched on to 2-track rather than mono, I think. Let's check that. Yeah. So let me know if that improves things on the microphone. Anyway, these lines here, this grid line that makes it look like a chessboard, is just because the light isn't built. So I'm going to go to build, lighting quality, medium, and just build everything. And that'll just get rid of those lines there. Sorry, by the way, if it takes me a second just to get back to you in the chat. It's just because it's over there on another window, and it's really, really tiny. I'm going to try and build a little kind of chat panel where I can see the chat a little bit easier, I think. Anyway, light build's going on, light build's done, all the lines are gone. Okay, so that's the problem solved. Yeah, I often switch the microphone to stereo by mistake, I'm not sure why. Pardon me. I was supposed to be going out and buying milk, I'll have to do that at 3. Now then, this texture is basic by all kind of stretches of the imagination, and now what we want to do is we want to make a much more complicated and interesting texture. Now I'm not going to make a landscape auto material today, okay, that's for later because it takes much longer. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show how we make a layered texture that we can, you know, apply weight to, and then on top of that I'm going to build some procedural stuff for it, you know, so we get grass and rocks. So let's go to content. And in content, I want to go to, mine's starter content, yeah, weird. I want to go into right click, new folder, assets, just so I know where my stuff is. And I'm going to make a new folder and call this landscape material. And then inside here, I'm going to create a new material. So right click, and it's going to be a material, and I'm going to call this landscape material master. Just so that I know what it is. Now ideally, for naming standards, if I was doing it properly, I'd put mat at the beginning, just so that I know for like searching around and stuff, but this is for our, you know, our stuff. Okay, let's open up landscape material master. Pop. Remembering to put it here where we can see it. Hello. Now then, what we need to do with this, okay, is we need to change this material a little bit, because at the minute all we're doing is this is approaching it like it would any object. You know, we're taking our texture, just wrapping it on top of stuff. Now for landscapes we need to use a different coordinate system. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the basic grass that we already have in the starter content. Okay, you can bring across any form of complicated fun stuff you want from mega scans, for example, but I'm just going to go with the grass here, simply because we're all on the same playing field. And I'll just drag that to there, and I'll put my RGB sample into base color. Now because this is going to go on terrain, we have access to some terrain nodes. So if I take out my UVs here, and I'm going to just type in landscape, and you can see here landscape layer coordinates. Now we should get a little preview image in here, and it should just be fairly gradiented. And for the mapping scale I'm going to change that to 2. Seems a good place to start. I can always tweak that later on. So now if I hit save, and I'll just clear this filter down at the bottom here and go back into my assets landscape material. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this over to here and let go. It'll need to compile. You'll notice there's 100 old shaders there. Landscape materials are much more complicated. However, give it a minute or two, and once it's done we should have a very similar looking, albeit slightly more shiny and plasticky looking thing going on here. Now, pardon me, I'm just doing some sniffs. Right, so you can see the scaling and the tiling and everything's completely different now to what we had. Okay, so it's not just draping it over the top. We're getting you know, a slightly different look and feel to this. Now, what I want to do is one texture going into our landscape isn't enough. Okay, by a long shot. We need something else, and for that we're going to use a blend. So I'm going to type in landscape layer blend. There we are. Now when I do that, you'll notice that we've only got one output and no inputs. We need to assign the inputs ourselves, and this grass is going to be our first input. So I'm going to add element, open that up, and inside here I'm going to change my layer name to grass. Under blend type I'll keep it as weight blend, and I'll change my preview weight to 0.5. And then what I'll do is I'll put this into here, and then I'll output the node to my base color. As simple as that. Okay then, that's great, that worked. What can we do now to build on top of this? Well, we've got grass, let's have some gravel or rock or whatever. So if we go down here to my content folder, and I'm just going to type in rock, and we should be able to find, here we are, rock basalt D. So I'll drag that up. D means diffuse, by the way, just in case you're in any way confused about that. Now for our layer blend here, what I'll do is I'm going to add a new layer, and if I come down here I'll call it rock, like so, and I'll change its preview weight to 0.5. Feed this into here, and this will not work properly unless I use landscape coordinates. Okay, especially now, just bear that in mind. Okay, that seems to work cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save. Takes a little while to save, simply because we're using much more complicated material setups now than we were, so it's got to compile everything and all of that kind of good stuff. But don't worry, won't take long. There we are. And now if we look at it, our landscape has turned to this weird kind of black plastic. Why has it done that? Well, it's done that because we don't have any layer information at all. So what we need to do is we need to create some layer information so we can actually put down grass or rock. Now bear in mind I've only got 3 layers here, so it should be a lot more simple than if I was doing kind of a 10 layer job. So let's get in nice and close. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to modes, landscape, and click on paint. Now for some reason, and I don't know why, Unreal Engine in 4.26.1 for me has this error where, see this thing here, target layers should be populated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save my level. So I'm going to call this a landscape. And it does this all the time when I'm teaching live or when I'm recording or whatever, so don't worry if it does it for you. And to make it work, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, New Level, Empty Level, and I'm going to save that. Okay, so I'll spell empty correctly one day as well. There we are. And then if I go back to my landscape, modes, landscape, there we now have grass and rock. Okay, so that's just something to look out for. Sometimes it does call a bug there. You doing okay, by the way, Daniel? Cool. Okay then, so let's make this work now. We don't have any layers assigned to these, so I'm going to click plus here and make a weight blended layer, and for that I'll just stick it in my assets, landscape, shared assets. Okay, and that's grass layer info. Done. Then I'll just Control and S just to save it, and this should now populate with some grass as soon as the shader's built. There we are. Now I'll do the same with the rock. Weight blended. Okay, there we go, and Control S. There, it's done. Okay, so what's this done? Well, if I select my rock layer now and come in, you'll see that we have the ability to, and I'm just using my square brackets to up and down the size of the brush, draw onto our mesh. Now give it a second, because the first time we do this it'll have to recompile the shaders, and there we go. You can see now we're blending between the grass and the what do you call it, the rock. Okay, so I'll just blend there, and it's obviously it's an additive blend, so you can see that we have grass and we have rock until such time as we, you know, completely override it, and we can draw all over this. Now bear in mind this is only one, okay, this is only one extra layer on this. You know, to make it look really good we're going to want lots and lots and lots of layers. That's important. However, it's a good place to start. Now I'm just going to go around the outside of this. There's a reason for that, I promise. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm basically isolating the parts where grass would no longer grow once it comes down here. And if I wanted to be extra cunning, what I'd also do is I'd blend in some sand and a few other things, but this will do for the minute. Now, as you can see, I mean, it's okay, but it's by no means massively impressive. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is that we don't have any normal layers. Okay, normal layers are important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Modes, Select, Content, Assets, and I'll go to my Landscape Material. Just quickly save all as well. There we are. And in my Landscape Master Material, I need to have basically this kind of setup here, but for normal maps as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my Content folder, get grass, there we are. And I'll get my grass normal map, there we are, and then I'll get my rock normal map as well. So just going to make sure, there we are, and I think this was it, basalt, yes, or basalt, depending on how you feel about it. Now to make the second set work we have to link up this landscape coordinates. Okay, now we could just copy it and bring it down if you don't like having a big mess everywhere. And another thing we need to do is we need to duplicate our layer blend, and it must be exactly the same as the other one with the layer names and everything so that it works properly. There we go, and I'm going to feed that into normal. Now when I do that and hit save, we can probably go and turn our kettle on, because it'll take about 20 seconds. Oh, or 30. Mineral water, lovely. Taste of cucumber. Who'd have thought it? Hope you guys are doing okay over there and watching the video land, by the way. Right, so that's done. So if I just close that down, and you can see now the normal map is affecting the ground here where the rock is, and the grass obviously not so much because it doesn't have that, but we've got the fall off between the two. Really important. Okay, now there's some other things that we can do to this, like we can change the what the heck do we call it, we can change the metallic, the roughness and the specular, and I'm probably going to have to do that. I wasn't going to, but I think I'm going to have to, simply because it's so darn shiny. So if I go into Assets and go into my landscape material, here we are. Now, I like to try and keep everything as logical as I can in my landscape material, so that everything is easy to find, because you never can tell when you're going to be passing something over to somebody else. So I'm just going to make a space just here, like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the number 1. I'm going to click it 8 times. Okay, 8 times, 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to select a value of 0.5, and that'll be their defaults. Then I'm going to right click and convert them all to a parameter. Now the top one I'm going to rename, so this will be, I've got to remember, it's grass rock, grass rock, grass rock. So grass, oops, hang on, I'm going to make sure it's blue, I think, not whatever colour that was. Grass metallic, and giving it a name will make our job so much easier. Rock metallic, grass specular, rock specular, and then grass roughness, and finally rock roughness. Okay, now what I need for these is I need another 3 copies of our layer blend. So Control W just to blend, copy it, and do it again and again. Now these are uniform weights that we're creating here, in that they're not tied to a texture or anything, so I don't need to have a landscape UV come into these. So I'm just going to link these all up, and if I had more time I'd also throw a comment box on this, but I don't want to spend the whole year here. So now I'm going to link these up. Make sure you link these to the right one, otherwise it is of course going to ruin our instance material later. Okay, that is done. Cool. We can do the horns. Okay. Hit save. Wait patiently, because now we have lots of instructions hitting this. You can hear me drinking instead. Way enjoyable. Come on, my lovely. You can do this. Yep, that's done. Cool. Okay, so now I'm going to close this down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click my landscape master material and call this landscape instance and save it. And I'm going to drag my landscape instance over here to my landscape material. And now what I can do is I can do my tweaks in here, and it's going to be much quicker than if I tweak it inside my master material, because my master material is already compiled. So I'll just open these up. And my grass metallic, well, it's not going to have a very high metallic, so 0.2. My grass roughness, it'll be much higher, 0.7. My grass specular, won't be very specular at all. My rock metallic, let's make that about 0.65. My rock roughness, 0.35. And my rock specular, 0.45. Okay, so just some rough values. And I could have fun kind of adjusting those all I wanted later, but just to take some of the shine off the grass, and make the rock a little bit more matte where it needs to be. Excellent, so that's worked. Now let's get rid of these exciting chessboard lines. I'll just quickly click build. While I'm doing that, we can all engage in some exercises. There we go. And our lighting build is done. Now if this was a huge terrain, you might need to go and get yourself a cup of coffee or some crisps or something, but we're okay. Lines are gone, everything's cool. Hit play, and we can see that everything's kind of working okay. Now this is the basics of making a more complicated layered paint on kind of landscape material, but we can bring some more into this. Okay, now I was teaching yesterday and I was explaining to students about procedurals, but we didn't really have time. So let's say we want grass on this, and who the hell wouldn't? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my landscape master material. Now if you remember, we've already got this layer blend, okay, called grass and rock, and we can use those. So what I'm going to do is right click over here, and I'm just going to take I look over here when I type in grass, and we get these landscape grass output. Now this seems a bit of a weird one when we look at it, because the grass output here is just an input. It doesn't go down to our material system. So how do we possibly make it work? Well, let's open up the array type, because it's got one. I'll open it all the way up. And we can see here in the array type that it's got a name, grass, which is convenient because that's called grass, and it's got a grass type, none. So we need to make a grass type. I teach architects and engineers, Daniel, how to use Unreal Engine. I also teach game developers because I'm a game developer myself, but there's a lot of interest in the AEC community about Unreal Engine. So I tend to teach professionals how to be better at what they do. Anyway, enough about that. What I want to do is I want to make a grass type, because we can see it here. So if I go to assets, right click, and for this I'll go to foliage, and we can see we've got landscape grass type. So I'm going to make that, and I'll call that grass type grass, just for my reference, and save. Okay, so with my grass type grass, which I've immediately lost, let's open it up. And in here we have grass varieties. Now if I click plus, and when I do that you'll see we suddenly get 19 members. I don't need all the information for that, but I'm going to take some. And what I'm interested in is this grass mesh. Now, if I go to my content and go to my new Megascans folder, 3D plants, I can find my thatching grass just here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab some of it. Now, let me see, foliage. This is static mesh foliage. I want to actually grab the static mesh and drag it into here. So 342 triangles, that'll do. We can use just about anything for this as well, but I'll click save. Now grass density is how many instances you get in 10 square meters. So for the minute, let's make that 750. I can always reduce it later. Right, now I have a grass type grass. So if I go back to my assets, what I'm going to do is I'm going to populate that with this. Okay, so now this grass node here has some grass in, but nothing's happening to it. Why not? Well, because we need a sample, we need a landscape layer sample to tell us where to put the grass. So you'll notice this has gone all kind of like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this out and look for a landscape layer sample. There it is there, and the parameter name on this is going to be grass with a preview weight of nothing. I'll just leave it as it is, and I'm going to click save. Okay, let's wait. Takes a while. Look over there. Nearly done, promise. Done. There we go. I'll move this out of the way. Right. So, oh, what's happened here? We have grass. And this is how it works, you see. Now, obviously this is fairly basic for what we're looking at. But if I click play, you will now see that we have grass starting to appear in our scene. Now, not a lot at first, because the way grass works is that you know, you can end up with an awful lot of it, so we need to be very, very careful. But let's go into our grass type grass, and what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to really push it out so we get loads. So I'm putting it to 1000 in my grass density for the moment. For my start color distance, so this is the distance where they'll start to fade out if I'm using a per instance, or we've got an end cull distance. So I'm going to change my end cull to maybe 7500. Done. Now for scaling, what I'll do is I'll change my minimum to 0.85 and my maximum to 2.25. So we're going to get some real variation in how tall the grass is. It's already set to random rotation, so if I click save and then save my landscape material, and let's have a quick walk around and see how it looks. So we can see all these very simple basic grasses just lying on any area now that is assigned to as being grass. But if we go down to the rock area, you'll see that we don't have that heavy grass going on. Okay, well, we can add to that if we want to, okay, because we have this grass type grass. So if I open that up, and And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new array member. I'll add 2 in fact. There we are. So in this one, if I go to my content, and I'll go to my, let me see, Megascans, 3D plants, thatching grass again. I'll put this one into there, make it 600. And I'm not going to mess around with any other settings, okay? I'll let you do that. And I'll put variation, let's see, this one, into there. I just put some more variation into that. So that's saved, grass type grass. And now if I close this down, there, we can see we've got different grasses now kind of blending in, okay? And they're just linked to this material. So now if I come down here, as soon as I'm on the rock, you'll notice I get much sparser when it comes to these. So we're getting the grass up here, but not so much down there. Perfect. Okay, well what about in our rocky areas then? Because we might want to make them look a little bit more interesting too. Well, that's why I downloaded the rocks, wasn't it? We kind of worked that one out, I'm sure. So if I go to assets, and I'm going to make a grass type rock, so I'll go to my foliage. And I'll open that up. Now in here, under grass varieties, I'll click plus 3 times and open all of these out. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Megascans, where I've got my lovely big 3D assets, and I'm just going to put some rocks in. So there's a rock there, and I'll keep everything else as default. There's a rock there, and I'll put this one in. For the last rock, I'll increase the amount it does to 650, but I'll change the scale as well to a minimum 0.25. Okay, click save. And now if I do that and then wait just a moment, well, nothing. Why? We haven't bound that into our layer. So let's go to our landscape material over here. Oops, that was the landscape level, my mistake. So landscape material. Find the master material, because it'll only work with that. And just find where we put this little nodes to nowhere up in the top corner. Now we've got sample grass going in here on the grass, so let's add another array element. And the second array element will be called, well, I'm sure you know this, rock. And if I take my grass type rock and just put it in there, and then I'm going to take my sample, so I'll type in the word sample and look for landscape layer sample. And the name of my landscape layer sample, as I'm sure you probably have guessed, is the word rock. There we are. Now I can click save. Isn't this good? I've got a snuffly nose, so I do apologise. Right then, sorry, I was just doing something on the screen there. So let's close this down and see how it looks. Oh, it worked. That's a shock, isn't it? So let's go down and have a look now, give it a chance to load. And there, we now have rocks on our rock bed, or we have grass on our grassy areas. Okay, it's all working. Now, if I come out, we can see that there's not a lot of culling going on, but there is some. So we could adjust our culling if we wanted to, because you know this amount of stuff is going to slow us down a little bit, but that's for you to do, that's for you to tweak. So hopefully you'll get some kind of fun out of doing that. Alright, let's see what we've learned today. See that? Lots of clicking and stuff. That's cool. Okay, so now we're finishing up. So what we've done is we've created a landscape, we created a master material on our landscape that had 2 different layers that were weighted. We then applied these weight layers, you know, and built a weight layer file for our landscape over here in the mode area, and then we built a procedural system to place some rocks and grass, and you know, it's worked okay. I mean, if I click play and come in close, we can see There we go, loaded. It always takes a moment or two to load the procedural grass and the procedural rocks, but once it's done, it's done. And it looks pretty cool, you know, it looks pretty cool. I mean, imagine if I'd spent longer than 30 minutes doing this, you know, I'm sure we'd have a really, really cool result. So, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. If I'm teaching you directly, please feel free to ask some questions. If I'm not, feel free to shoot me an email or jump in the Discord and say hello, and I shall talk to you later.